Hey, how you doing? I just recently did my basement and I wanted to show you guys a couple of pointers, show you guys what I did to maybe teach you a couple of things that maybe you can take on your project. So in this basement right here, I put vinyl flooring down. I'm going to talk about which vinyl flooring I used, what tools I needed to actually get this done, and then some of the process. This is not a tutorial cut by cut, it's just a general overview of what to do. So let's take a look at my basement, what it looked like before. So this is my basement. As you can see, there's really not much down here. It was pretty much concrete walls, concrete cement on the floor. I didn't really have to level it because it was pretty straight, but I did waterproof it, and I'll show you a little bit about that later. So we had a couple of walls left over that we knocked down and we reframed everything in steel. I think it's important because it's the basement and there's moisture, so steel was easy to use. I also used some soundproof insulation in the ceiling. Once we sheetrocked everything, and I used mold control sheetrock. I think that's important in the basement too, once again, because of the moisture that you may have. On the floor, like I said before, this red color here is the red guard, and it's pretty cool because when you lay it down, it's actually really bright pink, and then it gets red, a deep red, when it's ready and dry. So then after sheetrocking, we painted everything. As you can see, it's a nice blue color that my wife picked, and this is what it looks like now. So let's talk about some of the material that I used for this job. So I told you that I used vinyl floors. I selected Lifeproof. You can buy this at Home Depot. I thought this was the greatest bang for the buck, basically. It's $2.99 a square foot. It's 8 millimeters thick, which is one of the thickest that I've seen. The thicker the better, because once you lay it down, you want something to feel solid and strong and not something flimsy. So if you can afford it, go for the thicker one. This is also scratch proof, it's water resistant, it has a drop and lock system, so it's really easy to install, and once you install it, you probably won't regret it. Let me show you what it looks like. So this is the Oscala oak. As you can see, it has a groove locking in the bottom, it has a groove on the side and on the top. It also has a protector underneath. And there's some cushion to this, which is great because when you're walking on it, it feels really nice. Let me show you really quickly just kind of how it locks. You basically get the top end of this, you go in here, and then it locks in like that. You're gonna need some tools to kind of tighten the joints and bang it down a little bit, but basically that's it. It kind of sits like that. It's really easy, like I said before. Let me show you some of the tools. So here is a rubber mallet. Rubber mallet you're gonna need because you're gonna need to bang the joints over here and you don't wanna ruin the vinyl. This is great. You have a speed square to make sure you get your cuts nice and straight. Obviously it's measuring tape. I used a miter saw to cut the edges and the corners. So if you have a miter saw, you can also use a circular saw. You're gonna need something to get these joints nice and tight. And what I have here is the RollHammer. The RollHammer is a new tool out there to lay down flooring. It works great, not only for vinyl floors, but also wood floors. This will get the joints nice and tight. It's made of steel, it's nice and sturdy. It has a grip on the end, which makes it nice and comfortable when you're working. The way it works is basically you have a steel head here with an edge that you put at the end of this and you kind of tighten up. The edge actually turns around 360 degrees, which allows you to get into any angle that you really want. Some people use a wood block to get the joints tight, but in my experience, when I've used a wood block, sometimes it damages the edges, and with the RollHammer, you don't really have to worry about it. You kind of lock it, and you pull it in to make it nice and tight. I'll show you the way that works. I have a little area over here where I can show you how I kind of lay down some of the flooring, and let me show you how to do that. So this is a little area that I left so I can show you what it kind of looks like to lay down a couple of the vinyl planks. Like I said, this is not a full tutorial, but it'll give you an idea of the job that you'll need to do. This red right here, that's the red guard that I was talking about before. It does that little protection from the moisture. So here I have a couple of panels that I already cut, and I'll show you pretty much how to kind of install it. And for this job right now, all I really need is the rubber mallet and the RollHammer to get everything nice and tight. So let me show you pretty much how it works. So here's a piece that I pre-cut on the miter saw. You have the grooves on the top, then you have the opposite grooves on the bottom. What you want to do is pretty much join the two. So you kind of lay it on top like this, right above on the groove, groove to groove. Make sure that it sits in nicely, and once you feel it sit in, you just drop it. And once you drop it, it's pretty much locked in, but there's a couple other things you need to do. One, if you feel this way, you feel that it's uneven, and you also have a lot of space in these joints, and you want to make that nice and tight, and you want to make it level. So the rubber hammer here is what you need to make it level. So you just need to bang a couple of times until you feel that it's pretty even and level. Then you bring the roller hammer is what you need to make the tight joints that you need. So you grab one of the edges right here and you put it on one side of the plank. You let it sit pretty much flat because it's a rolling system, and you pull it in. And as you can see, it makes the joint really nice and tight. Zoom in over here a little bit. You see that space right there in the joint? With the hammer, you kind of bring it in like this, you hold it in, and it gets nice and tight. So this really saves a lot of time. Let me put in one of the other planks right here. So once again, groove, opposite groove. So you come in here and you fit your plank. Make sure it sits on top of the groove. And then you bring it down. Rubber mallet to make it straight. You come in here with the roll hammer, put it on the edge, nice and flat. Make the joints nice and tight. So this is the last plank. Usually the last plank goes up against the wall. If you're using a wood block, you can't really get in there to make the joints tight. Up against the wall causes some problems. I've seen people use screwdrivers, and basically you just kind of ruin the wall. With a tool like the roll hammer, you kind of get in there really easily and make everything nice and tight really quickly. I'll show you how that works. But for the last panel, it's pretty much the same as the other ones. You marry the joints. Once you feel it kind of going in, you just drop it. Feel around to see how level it is. Then with the rubber mallet, go in there and you hammer it down. Then you want to make sure your joints are nice and tight. So you bring the roll hammer, as I said, you grab the edge right here and you put it right against the wall. It lays nice and flat and you bang it back. Come over here, you see the joint right there? Look how nice and tight it gets. You come over here, you see the joint? Nice and tight. If you want to get the roll hammer, you can go to the RollHammer.com. Like I said, I totally recommend it. It does a great job, makes everything go quicker. Let me show you one more thing. So I mentioned before that you have this swivel head. It works great in areas like this, where you have, like, say, this angle and you're trying to get in there. It's really hard and uncomfortable. But with something like this, you kind of bring it in there, swivel it, and just make it nice and tight. So it allows you to really get into some of these really hard areas where you can't use a wood block or other tools. Like I said before, the RollHammer.com if you want to get it. Rubber mallets, speed squares, and everything else you could probably get at your local tool store. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully some of this was valuable, and hopefully you got something out of it. Thanks.